Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 31. This is the first one I'm filming in the new flat. I'm wearing the t-shirt my mum got me, Eat, Sleep, Podcast, Repeat. So it's all a big thing now. Very exciting guest today, arguably one of Scotland's most famous farmers. Today we have Stephen Mitchell of the Buffalo Farm. Stephen, if you want to say hello.
Hello. That's definitely arguable, or unjustified. Sorry, would be the better way to say it. But thank you.
Before we get on into another excellent episode of the R2Kast, I would just like to thank the sponsor for the show today, The Scottish Farmer. A weekly magazine highlighting everything you need to know regarding the Scottish agricultural industry, whether it's breaking news, events happening in the sector, market reports, classified ads, or just wholesome stories happening in the industry. The Scottish Farmer's got it for you.
Yeah, I actually, whether you remember this or not, Stephen, I had the pleasure of meeting you when I was a fourth year student back in, oh God, what would that be? 2017, we came up to the Buffalo Farm with the ARSRUC bunch. There was a lot of us and we absolutely cleared out your shop from memory. So, yeah, it's an interesting place that Stephen runs. We'll get into that as we go along. Could you tell us a bit, Stephen, the farming was always for you, from memory? Were you fifth gen?
Yeah, it goes back to the Mitchell's farming in Fife, the 1800s now. And yeah, there was just no doubt. And I'm seeing that a little bit, hopefully seeing that my own. And I have a son myself who's just over 2, and it's like, you can see it's in his blood too, you know, that love of the outdoors and animals. And I don't want to go straight into the negative, but I was definitely dealt a tougher hand as a youngster. Sadly, father was actually killed in an accident, sort of unrelated to farming, but on the farm. He was training a dog to retrieve a dummy, and unfortunately things went a bit wrong, and he hadn't long had an operation on his back, and sadly drowned in the loch on the farm. So I didn't have dad around to steer me, but it was obviously where I had that natural connection, you know, wanting to, and I was very fortunate that the farm continued to run by my uncle. He sort of took over full responsibility, and my aunt, who had my dad's sister, who was in Canada, actually returned from Canada not long after he died to support Tom to run the family farm. But my mother, who was not a farmer, she was a school teacher, but clearly saw, probably due to the fact she was a school teacher and I was so bad at school and such a poor academic, that my one chance was probably to knuckle into what I seemed to have a natural affinity to. And I was really, I can say this in an agricultural podcast, but I wouldn't say it ordinarily, but sort of just close to the cows. I had an affinity. I knew them inside out. I knew every cow's cat way more than my uncle did at the age of sort of 8, 9. I remember going up to United Auctions on the day that Tom sold the herd, and they called me Golden Child, the sort of the yardsman there, because it was I who put all the cows. They went up in separate wagons, and I knew in the pens was able to put all the cows and calves back together. They just couldn't believe such a young kid, and I still know one or two of these guys that followed my progress after that. But I sort of jumped about a bit. But Tom decided to sell the herd and concentrate on pig farming. And mother I had 1 or 2 animals in that herd, and that money was there to kind of reinvest. And I got another cow and started my own little herd back in 1994 of pedigree Simmental cows, and kept that going right up till I was kind of sadly, actually, when we lost mum when I was 15, so that was a kind of tough old start, but I don't actually hold it that I still see myself as a very lucky guy, because I had 2 wonderful parents that that encouraged me and follow what I enjoyed, and to be proud of what I was good at, basically. And I was extremely proud of my father's legacy and the people that the friends, and if I can have half that or achieve leaving so many people, because Dad's been gone since '87, and I still meet people on a very regular basis who love to talk about him and his farming skills and prowess and knowledge. So it's definitely inspired me.
Well, that legacy to still be there that long after is quite impressive. I mean, I was born in '96, and for someone to have left his way too soon, obviously in '87, and people still talk about that speaks for itself. It's interesting you mentioned that you knew the cows inside and out. There's the big challenge, well, certainly one of the many big challenges that agriculture is faced by, is the sort of veganism movement, that sort of thing, and that sort of story is something we need to sell. We care about our animals. I don't own any animals personally, but as an industry we do. It's not just a number, it's a business, 100%, but there's an absolute connection there, and we've got to talk about that more. So that's good to hear. Pigs, what did you think of them?
Yeah, I've never quite got as. I think they're an incredibly productive animal. They blow. They really are. They blow sheep and cattle right out of the water for just how quickly they breed and their growth rates, and they do make a lovely sausage. There's no question about it. So I enjoy eating pork, but I've never quite got that same. Although I believe if you work with my auntie, who bless her, is I would call a pig lady. She absolutely loves her pigs, and she makes my aunt and uncle make a great job of what they do with the pigs. But I'm not to say that I think they're right, and they're all part of the traditional farming system. I think there's always been pigs at my family farm, as I still call it, even though I only rent what I have there. I'm not in the family business. There's always been pigs around, so I've got a soft spot, but I'm not in love.
I think the noises they make could push that away quite easily. I would struggle to work alongside that.
And you do definitely. They do have characters. That there is. If you allow yourself to kind of get to know a few, that there has been one or two famous pigs around our. I remember my auntie having a sort of pet one called Katie, who was a real character, and I have a memory of a pig when I was a kid that had meningitis and recovered from a state of you were completely, it was almost, and so it's difficult if you're rearing them really intensively to get that cat, but if you've got smaller, which we do, my aunt and uncle do have, you do get that. You see these hero animals that appear,
And it's interesting you talk about the sort of efficiency side of them. I mean, their natural digestive system being monogastric means their killout's about 75. So, that in itself is brilliant. They're interesting animals, very clever animals as well. You mentioned that you sort of started building up. You bought your own cow back then. How big did that build up to before you made the jump into what we'll come on to later?
Well, just at the point where I was discovering women and beer, they got turned into beer tokens, if I'm quite honest. But we had I think its peak probably only about seven or eight Simmentals. Had a very embarrassing trip to Stirling to sell a bull which didn't even make the weight category. I thought he was wonderful, but got rejected. So there was no great success story there, I have to be quite honest. But made a few pretty good contacts and learned a lot of lessons and thoroughly enjoyed the experience, but didn't really make a profit out of it.
It's all a learning curve, isn't
it? Yeah. The really fancy, expensive one I bought was next to useless, but my mother and stepfather surprised went down to Goole to Brinkton Simmentals, if anyone's and I had my heart set on a couple, and they went for quite big money, and we managed to get one that sort of like close to 3,000 guineas, and that was my one, and I thought that was me finished. But my stepfather sort of said, "You can get another, but your budget's a bit smaller." And we bought one at 1,200 quid, and she was, to my stepfather's delight, who had nothing to do with agriculture, and it's a sort of shared thing. She outperformed my very expensive one, so I guess it's a lesson in that. But
well, there probably is. You're doing it for the first time. It's hard to not get excited and caught up in it, I assume, as someone who's not done it. But if you guys are listening, you've probably seen this face before. Unfortunately, the face you're currently looking at, because the recording points to the talker, is me. I mean the other face that's been talking. The much more well-trimmed face, I think would be fair to say. He is pretty well known. He is big followings online, Facebooks, Instagrams, all that sort of thing. Been on the telly, which we will get into. But in 2005, again, from memory, Steve, you made the transition into buffalo, which is an out there choice, an agricultural diversification, but certainly not one of the common ones. What made that come about? Why?
I get asked that. I wish I had a clear answer, but and as I've got older and more aware of risk and pressure I probably would never have done it if I hadn't been so young. I think that I went straight in with the sort of the tougher part of my sort of experiences with mum and dad, and I was probably fairly fearless, kind of, and just desperately looking for an opportunity, and just with the circumstances. Hugely inspired by what my uncle and auntie had achieved by they'd got into a bit of trouble with the pigs. They'd kind of been, after dad had died, they really upped their numbers, and cattle had went away, and the cattle sheds had been kind of turned into piggeries, and they were renting piggeries all over Fife, really, to fatten as many pigs as they possibly could to the supermarket trade. And unfortunately, that just wasn't viable. They were losing money on each pig, but us Mitchells, we don't kind of give in easily. So Tom decided he needed to radically change the way he did pigs, and he went and taught himself the art of butchery in a very hospitable butcher shop in Kirkcaldy, where he got the use of the facility at night when they went home, and he butchered his own pigs, and he was a pioneer behind the farmers market movement in Scotland. And I was just at that point where it was SEC doing agriculture and coming back, and it was great to have a Saturday job going off and doing the markets for him. And as you probably tell, I'm not shy of talking and chatting, and I love that interaction with the customer. And it sort of, I felt it really crossed both my love of, and so I wanted to do something farming, but I loved that opportunity to sell and build a brand, and did it. So my uncle was keen to support me. The farm was the grassland was all being rented out at that point to another cattle farmer, and there was a chance to take that land back in hand. But to do beef, there was already really good people doing beef that I couldn't justifiably give myself a strong, unique selling point. That was always the stuff we were taught at college. You need to have a unique selling point, and therefore I looked about, and I looked at all sorts of ridiculous things, from crocodiles in the loch to, or maybe slightly less ridiculous, but ostrich and venison and stuff like that. But none of it was quite. And then I fell into buffalo, and then realised that they were pretty similar to cows, yet they did have that unique difference. And most importantly, and I didn't realise just quite how importantly at that time, was that there seemed to be a lot of opportunity around them. They weren't a one-trick pony. You could get really good beef. The milk had a lot of positives, and we're now just starting to tap into that. So I've given you a very long answer. I'm not sure, I can't even remember the question, but I'm hoping I've given you the background to what, because there was a whole pile of mixed stuff coming into it, and I'm quite honest, I was still hanging on to that dream of being a cattle farmer, that the buffalo would give me the angle in, and that's exactly where we're not saying that we've achieved everything I wanted, but I have now got a herd of cattle here, and we're gradually up in the numbers, and so I think that was always part of it, was me trying to, and I've sold beef right from the start, because at times we had a very sort of intermittent supply of buffalo, and so they've given me the route to the farmers markets and to the public, and we sold beef and lamb and all other sort of traditional, but generally speaking, it's been sourced from other local farms rather than fattened by ourselves.
And when you talk about the buffalo meat, what is it called? Does it have a name, or you just call it buffalo beef, or what?
We do, and we're ironically. I've just come out of a long discussion with marketing team. Sound like I'm some kind of big flyer, but we do now have a.
You are though, aren't you? You are. Admit it.
Well, scarily, that dream has ended up. We now employ over 100 people, which is quite nuts. And unfortunately, in some respects, I'm super proud of that. In other respects, I'm quite resentful, because I'm now a bit embarrassed when you call me a farmer, because I'm what you could call a slipper farmer now, because I don't really get my hands that dirty. I look for but I'm not doing my job properly if I'm out doing that now. We've got people, kind of great people, hopefully better people than I am, sort of trying to drive that side of the business forward, and I'm sort of trying to look after all others. But that's you've got to be careful what you dream about, because I've taken myself away from farming, trying to make it all work. But and I'm enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to complain, and we're very, very lucky. But it is. It's a lot harder work when you're. I sometimes describe, I chew a lot of bloody cotton wool. I'm doing stuff that's not really my natural, and I'm having to learn and take myself out of my comfort zone. But we're doing it for this goal of fulfilling this dream, because I've taken on a lot of debt, and a lot of responsibility, and a lot of along this way. But it's still going in a very positive rolling forward, and we've got a lot to be proud of and excited about. Sorry, well, I just go off on tangents. I really.
Honestly, it's perfect. I'm the exact same. Sitting here being the interviewer is actually quite hard, because I just want to talk as well. But no, it's brilliant. It's what I like to hear. It makes it much easier for me. Two things I need to mention. Ostriches, you said, sort of not quite as abnormal, which is true. I mean, Little Rotor, Isla and George French, they're doing it. There's loads of people doing it.
Yeah.
Not loads of, that's not true, but
there's
crocodiles.
People,
I have to ask about crocodiles. For meat or as an attraction? What was,
Well, I suppose it was equal to, sometimes I answer the question, why buffalo? Because I tried it. I did see buffalo in Australia, but I also tried crocodile in Australia, and it's quite common out there. To the point that you can't. I specifically remember drunkenly ordering a crocodile pizza on the way home from a night out when I was backpacking, and it was quite tasty. And I don't know. I was sort of, I didn't get too far into it. Don't worry. You've got to bounce some ideas about when you're trying to come up with a unique selling point.
They do say livestock are dangerous, but I guess you're really increasing that with one of the world's best predators on your farm.
Well, ironically, I think buffalo are, African buffalo are more dangerous than crocodiles.
But I hold my hand up.
I think so. But no, fortunately, the domesticated buffalo, although I have had an accident to kind of argue that if you don't look at, but in general speaking, they're very, very biddable animals. They just have a dangerous side because of these bloody horns. But anyway,
when you say that, did they get you at one point, or what was that?
I did, yeah. That was one of the darker days. So I'm very, very lucky to have lived, to be honest. We were doing a photo shoot for, ironically, a wild animal. What do you call it? The art gallery when they're doing they're having an exposition. I can never get pronounced that. You know what I mean, anyway. And
I don't know what it's called.
And I'm holding a painting, and she's got, there's a cute one, and lo and behold, I should have looked back, but she was so happy. I kept smiling, and this little calf came over, which was very, very young. Mother, clearly, the group were a bit unsettled. Two groups had kind of got mixed by accident because someone got out and were waiting in a field of barley getting cut before we moved them back to separate them. So anyway, they were a wee bit sensed that. She kind of let out a bit of a war cry, which buffalo do, and that just showed you how quick the sort of herd instinct can kick in, And before I knew it, I had pretty much the whole herd descended on me, and I'm getting tossed about a bit like, I don't know if you've ever seen that sort of sketch from Africa where the water buffalo take on the lions.
Yeah.
They're hurling the lions about. Well, I got a wee taste of that. Fortunately, I think I was starting to sort of fear for how I was ever going to, because I was totally out of control. But one of them hooked me by my belt, which got me off the ground, and I was able to kind of grab on and hold on to her other horn, and because she couldn't see, she just ran out the group with me on her head and took me, dropped me off in the dirtiest, muddiest hole in the farm, right enough. But fortunately, it was just enough to let the thing calm down. And the lady who was there taking my photographs was able to kind of got underneath the pickup. We got into the pickup, and she drove me to the hospital. But I think 5 operations later and 4 weeks in hospital, I got out. Not a single broken bone, but a couple of pretty severe puncture wounds. And it was definitely not an experience I'm about to repeat. We learned a lot of lessons from that.
No, that's a life flashing before the eyes moment, that, isn't it? Jesus. Yeah. God. That sort of thing always puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Oh, it's scary. Scary stuff. Is it on camera, or did she stop taking the photos?
Well, she was off work longer than I was. Typical counsel, she got a bit of a fright. I was quite stressed by the whole approach. But I did, I got the photographs from her on a promise that I would never share them. So I do have the last photo that kind of the beast that describes the story, but I think she stopped taking during the. She wasn't there for the sun. You know, they would have kept taking pictures right up to the end.
God. Well, yeah, you're right. It's funny you were saying it was for a wild animals program. But like,
I know. Well, that's the funny thing. That picture I do have, I'm literally holding this animal picture, and then bang. But I feel sometimes I regret getting into this story because it paints such a terrible picture of buffalo, and it was my own stupid fault. It was one of these situations, you know, anybody who's got animals knows that there's sort of boundaries, and there's situations just where they're not quite themselves. And you know, one of them is when there's really young stock about. I hadn't really quite, I think it was just a reality check and. So we're a lot more careful with young stock, and to be honest, the way that we've moved the herd now to milking also has negated that massively, because because it's such an intelligent animal, they go quite primitive, and they don't require a lot of interaction. You know, they calve themselves, and we were upping our numbers, and really, to be quite honest, not spending a lot of time with them because they were so self-sufficient. They're out of grass. That they became quite feral, and we've kind of recognised that now, and put time aside every day to actually spend time socialising, because they're so clever that they respond to that and trust very quickly. And I don't think it was any coincidence that that accident happened. I hadn't really spent a lot of time around the buffalo for a wee period because we'd been doing catering at St Andrew's Square during the Edinburgh Festival. So I'd literally been in Edinburgh for a month and kind of coming back. So it was probably retribution for having such a successful, selling so many burgers over that period. Anyway.
It's not a representation of buffalo. It could have been a cow. It could have been anything. You know,
definitely, yeah. No, I do want to put that point across, because it was. It's state farming is a very dangerous occupation, and we all need to respect that and be aware of that, and mitigate it by being a bit smarter. And I think that was my time to wake up, and we're certainly, the way we operate now, considerably less reckless, I would say.
Yeah. No. And hopefully it's not something bad has to go wrong to make things better. But if it does, then that's got to be a good thing. It's just, you just take your eye off the ball for a second, don't you? It's all.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the positives.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer, and I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
Yeah, from a production perspective, they're very much dual purpose, as you've mentioned. They produce meat and they produce milk. First off, what's the kill out of a buffalo? What percentage are they killing out at?
We'd be very pleased when we kind of get 50-51. I would say on average we're probably 47-48, which is quite poor, but that's largely down to the thickness of their hide. Hide is 4 times thicker than cowhide.
Wow.
So yeah, and that is, unfortunately, we've not managed to capitalize on that, because if you go, I say this like I'm into my horse riding, but if we've got any horse riders on there, apparently all the really good saddles are made from buffalo hide, and you're all things that I'm not particularly close to. Handbags, good handbags, buffalo hide. I do like a good belt, yeah. and seeming, buffalo hide, but just because in this part of the world, the tanners, etc., are just not set up to cope with such a thickness of hide. Mm-hmm. They claim that they don't. You get, every now and again, I get a phone call from somebody that's going to change all this. It just never quite materializes. But in scary facts, buffalo produce 6. Well, I've heard two figures, either 12 or 16% of the total milk consumed in the world.
You're right. Yep. Yeah.
No, in Asia and these guys, it's massive. And I think I'm right also to say that the most expensively traded animal is a buffalo bull for AI, well, for semen in India. So they're massive.
Just quickly on that, was one bull the most expensive animal ever sold? Or
yeah, I think so.
Oh, really? Wonder what that was for.
Well, I'm not one to be, but you know what the pedigree people are like. It's all about corrupt. Imagine what it's like in India.
There's more people to play off each other, that's for sure.
But because I think when I read into it a wee bit, it sounded a little bit, but it was 1.8 million or something. But he gave away his farm. I'm only joking.
Well, the most expensive dairy female is it Missy or Mitzi? I can't remember. Sort of to be used for embryo transfer. She was $1.1 million.
Right.
At the time, 0.8 million. But can it be worth that? maybe it can. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah.
Well, I just think, knowing my luck, it would be bloody choking a potato or something,
Well, that's the thing. It's not. Yeah.
It's livestock. Livestock, you get dead stock, and it could all go horribly wrong. But
let's not get into those pedigree breeders. I've got into some arguments about that in the past, so we'll avoid that. On the milk, as milk, how does it compare to cow milk?
So we don't get the same yields. We're tracking. Well, my business plan is based on us hitting ideally somewhere about 2,700 litres of milk per year per lactation. Yeah. I'd be quite happy if we got a kind of herd average and kind of getting about 12 litres per day per animal going through the parlour. So your volume is much less. Again, you'll know better than I, but typically what a dairy farm would be, maybe 3 times that, possibly.
I think you're looking, some high producing ones are looking at 11 and 12 now. Like it's
crazy. But maybe your average.
Average for sure, yeah.
Because there is buffalo in the world producing 5,500 litres, but they're pretty thin on the ground, I think. But it's the consistency. So you're 8% fat against sort of 4, and protein.
Say that again. How much percent fat?
8%. Yeah.
Jesus! Wow.
So it's very rich, and that's why it makes for an amazing product. Like you can make mozzarella from cow's milk, but it's not the same product, and it's certainly. The stat that kind of makes you see that really quite clearly. From a litre of cow's milk, you would get about about 11% yield, so 110 grams of mozzarella. But a litre of buffalo milk, you would be expecting to get about 250 to 260
Jesus.
grams of mozzarella. So you can afford to have the less volume because of the productivity of it, I suppose. And we're also really excited about our ice cream and the yields that that's, because again, the ice cream that's proved most popular that we've been making is we're not adding anything to it. It's just what we call our pure, although I'd like to rename it naked buffalo. It's there's no vanilla. It's just the there's no flavour added to it. You know, people are saying, "Oh, is that?" But and it's complementing what we're doing with the mozzarella really well, because mozzarella you need to make and sell as quickly as you can. You know, you've got we've just recently managed to get it to a 21-day shelf life. But the quality is it starts to tip, I reckon, about 10, 12 days. It's still very good, but every day after 10 or 12 days, it's not quite as, you've not got the skins, it starts to break up a wee touch. But of your ice cream, you can get a 2-year shelf life. So that's why we're trying to play the two products against each other, so that we set up our sales and the mozzarella tracking and the lowest production we can sort of see. But if we have a peak in production, then that excess milk goes into mozzarella. So we're not disappointing customers by falsely promising products or only having it for a certain few weeks and then having to take it away. So it's quite hard getting that. It's been a real learning curve, just trying to get that balance between supply and demand. But I think we'll be battling with that forever. That's just the challenge I'm learning of this whole new enterprise I've set up.
Is mozzarella sold in a brine or a water?
Yes. Yes. And really, that's the only ingredient. Just about, so our ingredient costs are. I remember when we first did the business plan and my accountant going, really? Because all it is salt to add to the brine, and there's a starter culture or the rennet that you add during the boiling to split the curd and the whey. But other than that, there's no other ingredients to make a mozzarella. That's it.
And you mentioned that you could make mozzarella with cow's milk. That's a school day for me, because I thought mozzarella was like a PGI where it was a cheese from buffaloes, but I'm obviously entirely wrong. So,
see the pizza you see on the cheese you see on a pizza quite often is mozzarella. It's just not buffalo mozzarella. It's cow's milk mozzarella. That grated, it's massive industry. Massive industry. There's a factory currently being built in Ireland, and I'm not even going to quote the figures and output plan for that, but it's like off the charts, and that's making mozzarella at cow's milk. There is people. I coincidentally employ a local guy who has been making mozzarella always. He's a farmer's son himself. But, he's in his, hope he won't mind me quoting, but he'll be in his early 60s, and his brother still farming down in Peebles, milking cows, but he went off and worked in a dairy and found himself making mozzarella, but cow's milk. And so had been doing that. Ironically, he had a factory at one stage in cow and beef just along the road, but then spent time down in other parts of the UK. But delighted to get him back home, and he's helped us and had that sort of background knowledge of the cow's milk, and that's helped. But it's he himself just. It's just so different,
So the obvious daft follow-up question: what is mozzarella then? What is it? Why? What's the difference?
It's not daft. I was like you. I'm not a big salad man, or not be too judgy here, but and I was doing farmers market selling this buffalo meat, and folk just, do you not do mozzarella? Do you not do it? And I was like, no, I don't even. What's the excitement? And then I made the product, ironically, with Gordon Ramsay for the very first time, not messing about, but tasting that, and it was like, whoa, right, I see what the excitement is. It's just fresh. It's not powerful. It's not got a huge, but it's just subtle, and like, a nice balsamic vinegar and a caprese salad or it's delicious, or just I'm not a cheese snob, so I'll put it everywhere. I have it on my burger, I have it in and it just seems to sort of give a lovely finish to in a pasta. It's very versatile. Yeah. I mean, the Italians, when I went researching down in Naples and stuff, it's huge industry, massive. Well, there's over 1 million of them in Italy, and like the luggage carousel in Naples airport has adverts for buffalo farms. In every street. So whoa, and every menu, it's actually rare to find something that doesn't have mozzarella on it. And I mean, they just pick it up and eat it like an apple. They just totally love their mozzarella.
Similar to how I'd probably go.
Educate that, make that become a little bit of a. That's my job now, to really change the mindsets and make sure people like yourself are picking it up and trying it and playing about with it and enjoying it, hopefully. So that's.
Well, I haven't yet, but I shall. I like mozzarella.
Give it a try and try buffalo and see what the difference. It's this. Yeah.
I've tried buffalo. I've tried buffalo meat. I haven't tried your buffalo mozzarella. Okay. Yeah,
it's a game changer. I'd like to think you're going to think the same with ice cream as well. So, but we've not quite got the distribution with ice cream. Is we should be able to have mozzarella in most places in the UK fairly soon. We've got working with 2 or 3 different sort of distributors to do that for us through farm shops and delis. So it's quite exciting.
No, the ice cream, it lends itself to it when you really think about the contents and that sort of thing. But I'm conscious of time. I know you're a busy guy. I've got 2 questions. 2 questions I always end with, but I've got one more question just before that. The BBC's probably been a pretty big part of. It's maybe not fair to play your success to it, but it's certainly put you on the map even more than you already were. How did this farming life come about? What was involved in it, and did you enjoy it?
So we didn't put ourselves up from it. Ironically, I played rugby with, I didn't realise this, probably a reflection on me, because it was a very good friend of mine. He didn't tell me I had a sister until he phoned up and said, my sister's wanting your number for, basically somebody else had started the process and was being filmed, didn't enjoy it, and for whatever reason, and had to pull out. So I was a sort of last minute addition in series, I think series 2, and they came along. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. They got that call from Lindsay and asked if I'd be interested. She wanted to put us forward and asked a lot of questions, gave her the information, kind of a bit like this call today, and then they were filming about 3 or 4 days later, and I think what was key to success is that they're brilliant at finding really good people to make the program. So Lindsay and you enjoyed them coming, you enjoyed the crack. They made you feel relaxed. They showed the right level of interest, but not over. They let you get on with what you needed to do as well. And I just had a great. You always wanted to make sure you had fun and interesting things for them to come and see when they were there. So. And I think that was what probably, hopefully, I also love watching the program now is not involved, because it's great how they can pick such diverse businesses, and I think it really does showcase Scottish and UK agriculture really, really well. We were very fortunate to have a business that could benefit from it, I suppose, and I really take my hat off to those that are contributing with less to gain, but doing it for the greater good of everybody, I suppose. You're sort of quite right to say that my business definitely grew in profile and size, and there's no question this farming life had a big influence on that, and we probably milked that as much as we could at that time. To be quite honest, you've got to take what what opportunities come in front of you. And that was an opportunity to let people know what we're up to. And we've had a lot of different television stuff over the years. We've been very fortunate because we had that unique selling point that I talked about earlier, that people are looking. Food's become quite interesting, farming's quite. So we've had everything from Gordon Ramsay to all sorts of different chefs up over the years. But this Farm of Life blew all of that out of the water in terms of direct sort of impact. People want to come and see for themselves, and it was a bit surreal being asked to get a selfie, and I got a lot of teasing from my friends and work colleagues that it was definitely growing the size of my head, but hopefully it hasn't changed me, and I just enjoyed the exposure.
By the looks of some of the 6 and 7 p.m. content on the Buffalo Farm Facebook page of the different dinners and cuisines you're having in your house, it looks like the doors are big enough to get your head through anyway, so it'll be fine. I've spoke to a few folk. I've been on it. I mentioned I own a French there. She was on it. I spoke to a few folk, and it's good that you were able to capitalise on it and not just be on it, that's it, done. It's good that sort of something's been able to not come from it, but certainly be assisted from it. But I always finish with 2 questions. That was one finger. 2 questions. One of them is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And 2, and this will be kind of 2-pronged for yourself, if you had any tips for people coming into, 1, the farming industry, and let's say 2, the butchery industry, what would they be?
Okay. So in reverse order, in terms of tips and advice, I think our values is always just to be quite honest, and that's got us what we've got. We try to be pretty straightforward and both how we treat our customers, our animals, and our staff, and that's, they're all as important as each other. I'm nothing without my team, and I'm nothing without our customers, and nothing without our animals, and they've all got to be given respect, and that's the same in butchery or farming. Where do I see myself in 5 years? I've got a lot of really hard work ahead. There's a dream that we've built this factory now. We've taken on some. It's a whole other podcast. We managed to raise. We're, I think, one of the first sort of farming businesses to raise money through crowdfunding. So we have a founders club, and we raised over £850,000 of that. So that's a big. I went from having no bosses to, in my eyes, 500 bosses, and all these people kind of stepped up and got involved because they wanted to see me and the team deliver this project and see what it could look like. So it's a big responsibility to execute that and make it happen. And hence why I started this podcast talking about chewing cotton wool in the office and not maybe doing the bit that, but critically getting better people than what I am to go and do that part. We're slowly managing to, well, some people would say it's quite easy to find better than I. So that challenge. But no, just, I hope that we'll have paid back these founders and by 5 years' time, and we'll be kind of in a place where we're the team and I are able to continue the growth of the business, and that we've got, I'd really like to think that we're going to have milking partners, maybe 3 or 4 by that stage, because that's the business plan and model that we're working on. Is it's not just going to be my business that will benefit from farming buffalo, but we'll have dairy farms supplying milk to us, and that we've developed a market and educated people on the benefits of buffalo milk. I'm not here to, I've got huge respect for people milking black white cows too, and I believe it could even be some milking partners that do both, so they have a herd of buffalo and a herd, and just providing a diversity, so that they're, I think certainly the meat side, and I'm learning about the dairy side, but we're really lacking that local out for our products a wee bit. So I don't blame the supermarkets. I really respect supermarkets, but they've kind of grabbed the monopoly. The abattoirs, kind of all that sort of stuff is they're not accessible enough to, and I guess to an extent dairies maybe are looking a wee bit like that. So we'll try and we're never going to be massive. I've no intention of world domination, but I would like to shake things up a little bit, and I would be really, really proud if by the time Harry's taken over from me, there's a nucleus of other buffalo farms, not just me, in Scotland, producing a product of a really good quality that people enjoy and are proud of, and that's the dream.
Well, it's a good dream built on honesty and sort of treating everything the same, as you say. All good stuff. What was the other one? Well, yeah, what did you see yourself in 5 years? You just sort of covered it. Yeah, brilliant. Good. It's been, I'll be honest, for those of you listening, I tried to have Stephen on quite a while ago and emails fell through and time went on. So it's really good to get you on. Appreciate your time.
I love it.
Oh, well, I'll take that as a compliment. It's very kind. Yeah, it is. And you said, you're not shy to have a chat, and those that know me, and if you remember me enough from that trip, you'll know that I never as well. So
we need to get you here, and we'll have a wee taste session with ice cream and the mozzarella sometime.
If that offer is real, that
offer's sincere. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! That'd be excellent.
Bring your followers too.
Well, I don't have that many. Not quite as much as you.
I think you've been very modest.
Well, I'll definitely take you up on that. I've got family up that way, so I'll try and twin that in at some point. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Have a good rest of your evening.
Well, that's it. Another R2Kast finished. Another agricultural mind opened up. And I would just like to say that getting these guests on board, it does take time, and it always has done. But I've now went weekly, and with that comes even more time required. And I would just like to finally thank once more the Scottish Farmer for sponsoring the show and making that much more possible. Please be sure to get in touch if you've any ideas of people you'd like to see on the podcast, or maybe ideas you have for me presenting better, because I definitely do require that. See you in the next one.